Hey guys, this is Casey.
And this is Tim.
Welcome to Bootstrappers, a small business marketing podcast brought to you by BizIQ.
On this episode, we're talking about small businesses and tech monopolies.
This is a little bit older article, but what a beaut. How a TV sitcom triggered the downfall of Western civilization.
And it is it's a glorious nerd rant. It's just like a chess club. He's like an 8th grade teacher, isn't he?
Something like that, yeah. He's the chess club. He's the chess club president, or something.
So he was one of the nerds growing up, and now he's like developed into like the nerd king at like a middle school.
Right. He protects the nerds from the bullies.
And this article is this glorious just nerd rage rant where he just talks about the fall of the intellectual Western world is predicated with the character Ross Geller from Friends.
Right. With the perfect subtitle, the one where we retain our sanity in a stupid world. And of course, all Friends episodes were titled The One With or The One Where, and all that good stuff. So, and explain this a little bit, unpack it for the audience who hasn't read this yet.
Unpack it. Well, like, it kind of it kind of talks about how it's just they're all kind of standard attractive white people living in New York, and Ross is the one intellectual, and anytime he says anything
anytime Ross would say anything about his interests, his studies, his ideas, whenever he was mid-sentence, one of his friends was sure to groan and say how boring Ross was, how stupid it is to be smart, and that nobody cares. Keep laughing.
So I mean, I think that's this was right before like reality TV kicked off, and there was just kind of like this in kind of like his thesis is that like America became a very stupid place
at this because of and it's all can be encapsulated by the character.
So like Ross, he starts out kind of like sweet and romantic, and he just loses his mind and becomes insane as the show progresses.
Because he can never express himself as an intellectual.
Yeah, it's definitely like he's got some like Freudian repressed rage going on here. But I feel like the author sees a lot of himself in the character of Ross Geller. I think that he sees it as like a synecdoche of the greater whole.
Well, I guess if you tie it back to not like trying to make, I mean, this is a fun thing we're talking about, and everything doesn't have to be so topical, but if you think back to, some of the things we talk about with like the user experience of a website, for instance, right? And how everything has to be so fast and quick, right? And microwave. We could be bypassing some of the best arguments for like policies or changes because it's just so boring, because someone starts talking about the numbers or how it actually works, and we're just like, shut up, nerd. That's like, that happens, right? If someone's trying to explain like, for instance, Zuckerberg, right? He got bashed for his Congress hearing, but a lot of it, he was just trying to explain the internet to people who don't really understand the internet very well.
Yeah.
And it turned into, shut up, nerd, don't get into the details right now.
Yeah.
We're putting you on trial about something completely different, understanding like the base idea of it. So some of that article, like you said, it's kind of a lunatic-esque rant, but hilarious and kind of topical.
I went back on Netflix. There's this really cool CNN produced show called The 90s.
Oh yeah, I was actually on at a bar I was at last night.
Yeah. And it's a glorious show, and there's a lot of screen time dedicated to the Bill Gates deposition.
Okay.
So there was this, they accused, because like back in the 90s, I don't know if you remember this, but like Bill Gates was like a monster.
Yes.
He was absorbing everything. Like he had everything. It was like a fast growing thing. The company was just growing at like unprecedented rates, completely insane. And he basically absorbed Netscape. He had this deal with them, and he had to do
Netscape Navigator. I remember using that in elementary school as our browser. Yeah. And
he basically used Netscape. He kind of maneuvered Netscape out of the picture and Internet Explorer into the picture.
Kind of forced it on people is the accusation.
So there was a federal deposition that happened to this guy.
This was right before he stepped down as CEO and Ballmer took over, right? Right before.
It was hairy. And he's become just kind of like this, friendly philanthropist since then. Yeah. He lost that competitive edge. He just got beaten down.
So, the question that I have whenever I hear about that, because you and I have been talking about it, especially recently, with Google's particular situation right now. We talked about last week where we had between Google Images and YouTube, they're at 90% market share.
That's true.
According to we watched a couple of videos. Right here is Spark Toro, which is Rand Fishkin's new deal, and he was working at Brighton SEO, and he gave a bunch of presentations about where Google's market share is at, and they're at, between those three entities, they're at 90%, and they're borderline monopoly now. So is something like that going to be in their future, right? They've already had issues with the EU, right? And pushing their particular products. I know obviously Yelp is a competitor of Google, and they have said some things, maybe not directly Yelp, but they're there's a Yelp-backed group that is making a call for Google to put the user back at the forefront instead of Google. So there's a lot of tie-in with that Microsoft deal and where Google currently is.
The thing that just kind of made the hair on the back of my neck stand up was Google's free traffic was a Trojan horse.
Right here it is, right there.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's the scariest thing in the world. So you get that a lot with apps, where it's free and it's always free. Facebook, also a free service, right? But what you're doing is, if the service is free, you are the product.
Yeah. Okay. So explain what you mean by that, because you said that earlier, and I told you that you were being ridiculous. So explain what you mean by that.
Well,
there we go. There's the 90% market share graphic from Spark Toro and Jump Shot.
God.
So that's Google Search, Google Images, and YouTube combined are at 90%. Then Yahoo, Amazon, Bing, Facebook, Google Maps thrown in there also make up the rest. So if it's free, you are the product. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, what it is this is not a this isn't like the polio vaccine where the guy invented it and then he's like, I'm not going to make any money off of this because this is for the public good.
Right.
Like, Google is a wonderful service that connects people to websites in a beautiful, elegant, super fast way, but they always had an agenda, right? They had this long game. And Rand was also talking about it with Facebook. I mean, yes, Facebook is free, but you kind of pay the price because you're putting your information in front of marketers.
Right.
And with Cambridge Analytica, which I pronounced correctly this time.
Yes, you did. Good job. Proud of you.
We can see that there are like these unseen secret costs. So you're kind of selling your identity in these cases.
Right.
Whereas with Google, we've been feeding the Google machine.
Yeah, we've been giving it, whether you're a user or a marketer or a web designer or an SEO, either side of those, you've been feeding them this whole time.
And they've kind of, they pulled the rug out from under us.
Right.
That's kind of what Rand was talking about, is that they've got this monolithic, with the featured snippet.
Right. So let's take a quick pause and before we get to industry jargon, let's explain what we mean by why some of this type of fatalist type concept is coming from. Okay. So what I'm going to do a search is I'm going to just quickly ask Google, how much is renter's insurance? Okay. Now, the way Google has modeled their service right now is they want to answer this question for us as soon as possible. Right? Now, they're not going to miss out on opportunities to make money. So the first thing that we see here is ads. Okay. But then Tim just mentioned the word featured snippet. Okay. Very important term here. That's what this little answer box is. Notice that this comes up before we go to any website and you're reading this information. And what am I doing as a user here? When I see this 30,000, 500 to 1,000, 50,000, I'm getting my answer right now.
Yeah.
And I don't really need to go to this Forbes article.
Yeah.
So Google kind of stole that content from Forbes and they don't get the traffic. Forbes doesn't get the traffic from me.
So it's, what is it, 61% of searches don't even result in a click.
Right.
So they just show up, they search something, and then they scan over the Google search engine results page, SERP, and people get their answer.
Our answer could be found in the meta descriptions of websites, right? Or they could be in these answer boxes or in, say, the knowledge panel. Yeah. Okay, so when I say knowledge panel, maybe I search a brand. Okay, pizza place right across the street from us right now, Gino's East, Phoenix. Okay, when I search that, of course I spelled it wrong. And then here is what we call the knowledge panel. Okay, so it's all the information you would need to know from Gino's. So notice what's happening here. I'm here and I could go to the website, right? But I have pretty much everything I need from the knowledge panel. I know when it's open. I know where I can go to order, right? Aloha Order Online, Grubhub, Seamless, Postmates. Notice there's even an ad for Grubhub on Gino's knowledge panel, and Gino's cannot remove this. Okay, so watch the money here. I click on this, all right, Grubhub is going to get charged for the click, okay, because that's a pay-per-click ad. I order a pizza through Grubhub for Gino's. Grubhub's going to get their percentage of whatever their service fee is for Gino's, and then Gino's gets paid.
And that's the machinery.
Notice, what did I never do? Through that whole process, I never went to Gino's website. Okay, now Grubhub benefited. They got the traffic there, but they had to pay for it.
So they took, Google is slowly, and like Rand kind of has like the opinion that this has been their long game.
Right. I think that might be a little far.
That's
I know you would.
Do you
probably
feel like
agree
that's tinfoil hat stuff?
Maybe not tinfoil hat, but I think it makes for a good argument that you can make to get some feathers rustled, right?
So, remember when Facebook first started including businesses on there?
Right.
And they were putting all these they were putting a lot of eyes in front of a lot of businesses.
Right. Organically.
Organically.
Meaning they didn't have to pay for those posts to get in front of their users.
So, and all of a sudden the reach was insane back in those days. In the early days, people were just it was such a great source of traffic. And that's kind of as bartenders say, the getting to know you prices. Yeah. Right? First drink's free.
Yeah.
And then,
Exactly. Get to the top shelf.
Yeah. So that's kind of what's happening here is they're phasing out that organic traffic.
Right. So Facebook's been recently, within the past couple of years, accused of, and not even accused, the data shows it, right, that the organic posts from businesses have dramatically dipped in their reach, and it's enticing them to sponsor their posts or put money behind their posts now, right? And the data is clear as day. They're just not seeing it as much. And so it's almost kind of that same idea as, like you said, the Trojan horse concept of, we're going to show your stuff as much as possible. Oh, now there's a lot of competition. If you really want your posts to be seen, you're going to have to use the paid option. Yeah,
you're going to have to monetize it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have to, give up a little scratch.
Right. Okay, so that's how those two come in.
So they're just slowly phasing the websites out of the picture a little bit.
Right, and that's going to be very interesting over the next couple of years, is the role that websites play. Now, I think there's always going to be a need for them. Yeah. But it needs to be on Google and Facebook's terms, unfortunately, right? You need to design your website with these feature snippets in mind, right? If you notice that, say you're doing an article about, things to investigate before you hire a roofer. Okay. And maybe you write an article and you notice that in featured snippets, Google is showing 4 bullet points on the list of their featured snippets. So you write an article that's got 7 things, right? So you put 7 things, you say 7 things to check out before hiring a roofer, right? So then those 4 are shown, but they also see the page title that says 7. So now you're going to get the traffic because people want to read those last 3.
So this is, I feel like this is kind of what's dangerous about companies becoming too big. Because what are you going to do? Just go to Bing?
Right. You're not going to.
Get at it. What are you going to ask Jeeves?
Right. Exactly. You don't.
Mickey Mouse search website.
You're not. You're going to stick with them, right? And you're going to stick with the Googles, the Facebooks, and the Amazons. So what can people do?
Yeah, like as a small business owner, like you're just kind of watching, the gods duke it out and make these decisions. These like monopoly-sized business are making these decisions that affect your bottom line. What can a small business owner do?
Okay, so if we go back to the Geno's example, I guess I'll pull that back up since we're looking at it. As I mentioned, now my OCD is going to kill me if I don't show the search results for the actual spell. Okay.
And out of respect for the business too.
Exactly.
Honestly.
So if I was Geno's here, we just kind of outlined a pretty typical customer experience. Now, one thing we left out because we're kind of quick through it, right? They're going to read through the reviews a lot, right? Especially if I haven't heard about Geno's before, right? So in a grand overall scheme, one of the things that I recommend all small business owners doing, and this has been talked about in this industry, we're not reinventing the wheel here by any means. Really optimize this knowledge panel section. Own every part of this that you possibly can. Okay, so let's just go vertically here. Photos. Make sure you have good photos on here. While you can't control what's here, make sure that throughout there, you've got great photos. What I mean by that is Google's just going to pick whichever one they think is best for this section. Unfortunately, you can't say, put this photo there.
Yeah.
So have great photos there. And since users can upload their own photos, make sure everything's perfect so that when someone takes a picture of the photo, it doesn't end up there.
Yeah.
Okay, we wouldn't want burnt pizza crust up there for Geno's. Okay, so next as we go down, reviews. Make sure you're well reviewed. We talked about this a lot last time. Okay?
There's that point real hard.
Right.
Real hard.
I think I spent 20 minutes on just that point. Okay. There's nothing you can do about this ad, unfortunately, right now. You never know when Google is going to, maybe Google goes the way of Yelp where they say if you have a sponsored knowledge panel, you won't have any ads in there. Hopefully that never happens, right? But you can't really do much about this. Obviously, your basic information, make sure that's all accurate. And if there's a way to order online, make sure you're putting that in your Google My Business profile, okay? As you were going to say, I think you were going to say this is one of your actionables, right? And maybe even mentioned it last time. Make sure you're responding if there's any questions and answers. If there's any questions about your business, make sure you're going in and answering this professionally with as much detail as necessary, okay? Reviews from the web. Notice that Google's not just showing Google reviews, but they're showing reviews from all over the web. So in this case, Grubhub and Facebook, Geno's would want to make sure they're working for reviews on those two sites as well. Okay. Then down here, a lot of this data is populated by Google users. Okay. Popular times to show up. Okay. Typical wait times, that sort of thing. Check out the reviews here. They do a review preview of the most useful Google reviews. This kind of sums up the idea is that this sums up the general experience, but you can get kind of, if you have a 1-star review from a while back, it might get stuck in this preview for a while. So really make sure we're staying on top of our reviews there. The good news is this thing keeps getting buried, right? I'm at the bottom of the page to find this review summary.
Yeah. Okay.
Notice we got a business description here. That keeps getting further and further down, but it wasn't even here a year ago.
And that's how Google phases things out.
Right. They just move down.
They just kind of move data down. Like over time, there's like this glacial, it's like this descent down the page. And pretty soon, like the information we want is going to be lost. It's going to be hidden somewhere on the internet.
Well, we'll see where the information that we actually want is actually going to go, because that's the whole point. If they're going to keep doing what makes the user happy, they need to make sure that they're providing that information first and foremost. Okay. So you'll also see there's a section for posts, which is the new social version of Google Maps. This is kind of replacing Google Plus, and they just had the new option. I wonder if I can see it here from this click. If I go in, I can now follow posts from Geno's. Okay, so now we're talking at a social media aspect. This is announced yesterday.
So you can subscribe to the business?
So you get alerts of their Google posts, of their knowledge panel posts.
So like events, like if your favorite brewery is having a Halloween party,
they make a Google post about their Halloween party. You get a notification on your Google account, which, if that sounds exactly like following on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, it kind of is. But we'll see, because I was actually just having a Twitter conversation with a local SEO I think from Florida, and we were talking about, well, are people going to even use this? I already follow them on Instagram. Why would I need to do this? And he made a good point. Local guides kind of have their own little community right now. They're almost like Yelpers. So the more and more places you can present yourself, the more useful it could be. But notice how low posts are getting now.
Yeah.
All right. They're almost at the very, very bottom of your knowledge panel. So who knows how long posts will last?
Yeah.
And this is just the nature of Google, right? Who knows how long X will be on the page? And then finally, these things that we don't personally like seeing, right? People also search for, and here's your competitors.
Yeah.
Right? Shout out to My Slice of the Pie Pizzeria. Really good New York style, Southwest style. But again, this is something that maybe Yelp, not to always bash on Yelp, but one of the things that if you do a preferred listing with Yelp, they have stuff like this, right? Where you have ads of your competitors on your free listing. If you do a preferred listing, those disappear.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe your competitors get removed from your knowledge panel.
Your thing about posts where they've incorporated this social aspect into this kind of brings me into a point I wanted to dwell on, is this monopoly of personal service.
Okay.
That, Google isn't just Google. It's no longer, it hasn't been just a search bar for a very, very long time.
Right.
You have the G Suite, which has Mail, Calendar, Google Plus, rest in peace.
Yeah,
boy.
exactly.
Google Enterprises, Google My Business. There's this whole
Drive.
Google Drive, which
replacing, for our generation, replacing Microsoft Office a lot. Right?
So, yeah.
It's powerful.
Like, it seems like what tech is doing is they're trying to keep you inside their bubble.
Right.
Like, if you use Google products, they want you to use all Google products. Apple is notorious for this. Like, if you... Apple takes it so far that they have hardware that's incompatible with other things. You have to get dongles and adapters to have your hardware playing with other stuff.
Right. Or
not even to mention the software.
When you go to a hotel now, half of the docks that they install on their alarm clocks are for old models that I can no longer plug into. Yeah. Right. So those kind of updates, conforming to their needs in this case, right?
Taking away the headphone jack. It's been a storied past. But Reddit now, Reddit wants to keep you on the page. They're trying to make this whole universe of services that are within this. And whatever happened to businesses just solely specializing on something, having one thing that they do really, really well, and that's their little slice of it. They have this creep that just goes out and they start taking real estate from the social world. They start rambling.
It's an interesting thing, but it's pretty genius, right? Amazon was a bookstore, right? Mm-hmm. So what did Amazon do? When we first came out, it was all about Amazon disrupting Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they might be knocking out Target and Walmart because they're doing retail. Yeah. Right? And they might even get to home services, right? Amazon certified plumbers, right? So it's multiple streams of revenue building monsters, and it's just...
And I was just reading a thing that said that Amazon is disrupting the duopoly. That's monopoly of
Facebook,
right?
And Google.
So Google and Facebook, that's where ads are happening.
Duopoly in digital ads, right? Digital paid media.
Yeah, in digital paid media. Yeah. So Amazon wants a little piece of that pie.
Yeah. With that though, you would have to be an Amazon. You'd have to have your own Amazon store.
Yeah, you'd have to have an e-commerce thing. So you brought up a good point when we were talking about it earlier. It's services versus products.
Right. So would your local electrician need to run Amazon ads? No, Google's still the best the best avenue for that.
Yeah.
But someone who's selling stuff on Amazon right now, you do a search for something, I'm in a different mindset with products, right? I just had to buy a couple US to Europe chargers because I was going to Ireland.
Yeah.
Right? I had no problem clicking on those ads. When I searched converters, European to American converters for power,
let's go.
No problem clicking on the ads at the top because of the star ratings, right? Yeah. And it was what I was looking for. It was relevant and they had good reviews, so I clicked on them.
Yeah.
So I could see for merchants, Amazon ads being really useful. But again, it kind of puts another cost that's working on your margins here.
Yeah.
Right? Because Amazon's going to take, depending on your industry, whatever you're selling, like I think it's like 8 to even 50% on some things from the sale, not to mention the click that led to that sale, or it didn't.
How crazy would it be? Now, this is, like far-flung future. Like you could on demand order an electrician to come to your house, and an Amazon van would drop off a guy with a belt.
I don't think that's far-fetched at all.
That eventually there's going to be like a fleet, like
especially since they've taken over like their own delivery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't see that. I mean, they already have Amazon Home Services, which is like
mm-hmm.
Google local service ads, the home advisor type stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already got the idea in mind
mm-hmm.
of taking the transportation aspect.
So much of our lives have become automated, like even the trucking industry, which we thought was untouchable. You got to have a guy in the truck, Even that's been disrupted by automation. In the point where we have a full-fledged Westworld world where people are replaced by cyborgs, Amazon will be sending cyborgs to your home.
Oh, so now you're saying that the electrician will be a robot. Yeah, that's where you're heading with
That's
this.
The long con here. That's Amazon's end game. Exactly. They got this planned out, man.
Okay, so over the course of 28 minutes, we have decided that Amazon will be sending robots to perform home services.
We
got there.
Correctly.
We brought you there.
We said it first, folks.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
So, Amazon, what I'd like to tie up, we just talked about the duopoly,
mm-hmm.
right, of digital paid media.
Yeah.
And then Amazon jumping in there. Okay, so what I want to define, remember, we always want to try to make this as useful for small business owners as possible in between our own rants.
I think talking about cyborgs is very actionable.
Right, I mean, very actionable. Maybe we have a counter every time we say actionable or palatable, it's like our buzzwords. But if we think of those three platforms, just as a quick summary, again, this is not reinventing the wheel or anything,
mm-hmm.
but when you're talking about Google ads. Mm-hmm. We just looked at when, I searched for how much is renter's insurance, we saw 4 ads appear, mm-hmm. right? What kind of mindset am I in as a user? I'm active, right? I'm looking for something. Yeah. Plumbers near me. You're going to see ads on Google. Okay, so Google is the best spot for someone who's in an active searching mode. So if you are catering to consumers that are in an active searcher mode, mm-hmm. Google is still probably your best place for ads, right? Where Facebook wins is those passive users, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just scrolling my Facebook feed and I see something interesting. Note interesting, right? We don't see ads for plumbers on Facebook, but hair salons, retail, content, that sort of stuff, mm-hmm. very useful for the passive user because it's more of an enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're catering to that person who might be scrolling mm-hmm. Facebook or Instagram and you want to get in front of that scrolling experience, that's a good place for you to be advertising. Mm-hmm. And then Amazon ads, while more and more people, as you mentioned, are putting some advertising budget there, mm-hmm. you would have to be someone who is interested in selling on Amazon or already is for that to be mm-hmm. a profitable area for you. And again, it would be in the product realm rather than services realm. Yeah. Again, services, home services, anything that you're offering a service, Google search ads are probably still the best place for you. Okay, so just to kind of put it in those three categories for where your consumers fit if you're looking at digital media. Okay, just wanted to do that real quick.
There you go.
I saw you're doing your smile thing. Whenever I start rambling about stuff that you no longer care about, you just start smiling because you're being polite. But it's your way of dozing off without falling asleep. It's just I catch you every time.
Oh,
okay, man. So should we get on to our actionables? Speaking of actionables, or should we bring up anything else? What do you want to? Anything else that we want to?
I want to do like a speed crash course into net neutrality, just like an update. Right?
Okay, go. I'm going to let you own this. You're the expert.
So net neutrality has been repealed, and certain states are, namely California, mm-hmm. are trying to do their own part to cut. So let me back up. Net neutrality is repealed on a federal level, but certain states have taken action to make sure that it's kind of upheld in its own way. California being one of them, because they have a lot of Silicon Valley in there. And net neutrality really does influence small businesses. So without net neutrality, small businesses are not going to be, maybe they can't afford those fast lanes. So it's going to effectively be like a new tax for small businesses to market themselves online.
Okay, and I'm just a quick interception here to explain. When we talk about net neutrality, we're talking about the idea of specific regulations placed on internet service providers that they can't limit your access to the internet in like a tiered package level. It's kind of a quick way to put it, right?
Yeah, so,
you can't charge me extra if I want to go to Netflix.com.
Yeah, so it's not like, so as the internet is now, you can just go there and it's free. And well, it's not free, but it's open. You can freely go to certain places. So imagine you'd have the social media package. Like if all you want the internet for is Facebook, Instagram.
Right. You pay one fee.
Yeah.
So how this disenfranchises small business owners is maybe they're going to have to pay internet service providers for their website to even show up in those packages and in those lanes, right?
And since it's been repealed, there's been actual cases of...
Okay, because that's where I was going to play some devil's advocate, okay? Yeah. Because we heard all about this. You know, everybody who leaned left and had a platform was yelling and screaming about this. And then it was repealed. And then for the most part, to be honest, I haven't heard much about the decline of the free internet, right? Yeah. Now at home, when Netflix is loading slowly since the repeal, I'm like, wait a minute, this is what they were talking about right now. It begins exactly. But I haven't gotten any update from my provider saying, I noticed you go to this website a lot. If you want to keep going there, you're going to have to pay more. So tell me what has actually been happening, what we can prove, not your tinfoil stuff. All right, what has actually happened since then, and how does California come into this as a state?
Well, it's kind of hotly debated because remember John Oliver had he basically set the internet on fire against the FCC. Yeah, there's been a lot of stories about Ajit Pai, and basically he flooded the comments section of the FCC with a lot of grassroots people that opposed the repeal of net neutrality. And recently, there's been 22 million comments submitted to the FCC that are in favor of repealing net neutrality, and millions of them are fake.
Is that proven that they are fake?
Well, 9 million of them are from deceased people.
So that's what's being investigated right now.
Yeah, so
these 22 million comments on the FCC's website or whatever about this topic. Yeah. Of those 22 million, they're investigating the validity of those on either side, really.
They're trying to see what's bot, which of those people are living, which of those are real
accounts at all, right? Like kind of like an investigation on how many fake Twitter followers Hillary Clinton has. This is the kind of investigation.
Yeah, you can look into, there are certain metrics to determine the behavior of a fake account online. There's certain red flags that...
Rand is doing that at SparkToro. That's what Rand Fishkin's company is doing a lot of work on, actually.
Yeah. So they're doing a lot of things to determine what is a real account. So that's kind of
that investigation is going on. Yeah. Okay. And then what's going on in California then?
In California, they
this is really interesting. Like this is where this can go, right?
Yeah. So what's happening in California is it's basically the federal government versus California. Right. And there's kind of this net neutrality, this Internet Bill of Rights kind of thing, where the Democrats promise that if they take over the House, that they are going to start regulating Silicon Valley, which is huge. Right. But that kind of comes back around into this whole thing. These tech companies are huge. They own our digital selves.
But a big tech company like Google, like this is a question I've had, so maybe this will be helpful for our users. But Google doesn't want net neutrality repealed, do they? Like where would like say Google or some big tech company stand on this? What would they gain or lose from one side or the other, in your opinion?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Like I know that it's
I know,
not
like
good for,
Netflix, for instance, like, because that makes sense, right? Because you could say Netflix is a competitor of a big cable company, a big internet service provider. Like, no, we don't want you watching those streaming services. We want our on demand.
Yeah, what it would do is it would change the market irreparably. Is what it would do. It would disrupt and change it.
If, again, granted, if internet service providers abused this leash that is now uncontrollably long.
So it's gonna, and the thing about net neutrality is it's not like flipping a switch. You know, it's not gonna be. It's like, oh, it's passed, and now you're paying. Yeah. You know, $500 a month to access the sites you want. It's not gonna be like that. It's gonna be incrementally. The internet's gonna be more like cable.
Right. So the interesting thing that's happening then with this, because the internet isn't really a state thing, right? You can talk about regulations that California can put on their highways because those are strictly defined by the borders of the state of California. Yeah. The internet is not. An internet user connecting to a server in North Dakota is now crossing state lines. Yeah. Right. So the idea, this is where the federal government, their argument is that California cannot require XYZ of the internet service providers because it's not realistic to require that they follow some policies in some states and not in the others, right? That's the gist of the argument going on here. Is California's
you have to define what is the internet? Is it a utility? Is it a public service? Is it strictly a product? You have to define some terms.
That's true.
Before you can start regulating and making laws about this. And back to the beginning, people don't know what the internet is.
Yes, that's true. So that's the quick update of where we're at with net neutrality. So basically, investigations into the comments, right? And the comments, and the reason that's important is because those comments were basically used as a social proof that, hey, this is actually what people want, right? And then California and other states are putting their own restrictions on internet service providers so they can't take full advantage of the repeal, right? And then let's see what else. And then have been some cases that like Verizon was like limiting some data for firefighters, and they
basically forced the fire department to invest in a bigger marketing like internet package
so that they could have access to the data they needed, right?
These firemen putting out the wildfires in California, risking their lives. Their equipment was rendered useless because they didn't have...
They like hit their peak too early or something.
Exactly. So they lost their data. They couldn't communicate. They couldn't use a lot of their products. And it was kind of a crappy thing for Verizon to do.
Right. And full disclosure, the FCC did put out a statement saying that in these instances, they highly encourage service providers to make exceptions for this sort of thing in an emergency situation. Okay, so full disclosure on that regard.
But you can't... Like, we're starting, when was it, May that it got enacted? Or the repeal happened back in May. So it's not going to be an overnight apocalypse. It's not going to be what people were saying about the Y2K.
Oh my God. Part of that 90s thing. Yeah, the CNN thing. Now, was the stuff with like the firefighters